Okay, today we want to look at reading input from a file. We have looked at how you can read your input through the keyboard, where we covered 4 methods which can be used to read input through the keyboard, using maybe the read line method, which is defined in the buffered reader class, using the various methods which are defined in the scanner class, using the console class, and also using the JOption pen class. So what we now want to look at is how can you get your input from a file, or how can you read input from a file. All right. So for us to read input from a file, we are going to use a class which is defined in the application programming interface, and to be more precise, we have a class which is called file, which is defined in the java.io package. All right. So this class allows us to create a file object, and it basically takes the path of the input file, or the path of the output file, because you can either read your input from a file, or you can send your output to a file, rather than maybe getting your input from the keyboard and sending your output to the console screen. You can actually read your input from a file, and then you send output to a file. Right. So you need to create a file object. You need to create a file object, and we are saying it takes the path. All right. The path can either be an absolute path or a relative path, depending with the location of the input file or output file relative to your Java program. All right. If your input output file is in the same directory, you can maybe just use the the relative path. You can use the relative path. That is where maybe you just specify the name of the file plus the file extension. But if the input or output file is located in a different directory, then you need to specify the absolute path. You need to specify the absolute path. Right. So here I need to import what? I need to import this class. I need to import the file, which is in the java.io package. Right. Then I need to pass the name of the input the input file. I need to pass the name of the input file. Let me maybe just check if maybe there is any maybe a text file which I can use, or a Word document. Let me just check these files. I think I can maybe use this file, which is a CSV file which I downloaded from Tsime. Right, this is a CSV, a CSV file. So what I just need to take note of is the name of the name of the file and the extension. Just need to take note of the name of the file. So that's HCT216 HCT216 underscore user list .csv. That's a comma separated values type of a file. Right, so I also need the location of the file. So what I can do is I can maybe just go to properties and then I copy the path, and then I'm going to paste it there. Then I copy the entire or the absolute path. Right, you can maybe just create any file on your machine or just read any existing file which is on your machine. Right, so I then take this to my code. Right, the argument is supposed to be a string, so you need to put it in quotes, or you need to quote it like that. Right, if you are using Windows, and if you are using the backslash to define the path, maybe the path is C colon maybe backslash, then we have a subdirectory. You should remember to escape the backslash. If you are using C and you are specifying an absolute path. For example, could be having maybe a path like C maybe colon slash maybe Zanamwe slash Java slash, like this, and then you have maybe test dot maybe txt or whatever file that you want to read from. So if you have something like this, you need to escape to escape the backslash. So you end up having having two double slashes. That is if you are using Windows, right? Because the backslash is a special character in Java, so you need to escape it. But if you are using Linux, where you define the path, maybe using the forward slash, there is no point in escaping it, because the forward slash is not even in C. You can also maybe use the forward slash instead of the backward slash to define the path. Right. So we now have a file object. We can actually call quite a number of methods using this file object. For example, we can check if this file that we want to read input from exists by using the exists method. Right, this method, the exists. So we can say f dot what exists. You can use it together with an if construct to check if the file exists before you start reading. Right, because you don't want a situation whereby you end up maybe having some errors in your program, which emanate from maybe the fact that you are trying to read from a file which does not exist. So you might need to check before you start reading whether that file exists. So you can say if f.exists, it returns either true or false. That's a boolean function. If the file exists, then you can go ahead and read. There are other methods like maybe rename to, delete, and so on. We have quite a number of methods that you can actually invoke using the file object. Right. Now we have created the file object. We need to pass that file object as an argument of the file reader constructor. We have another class which is called file reader. Right, so I can maybe create a variable, maybe and I call it fr is equal to new file reader. Again, this class is in the java.io package. File reader, then I pass what? Fr as an argument, and then I need to import what? I need to import a file reader because it's not defined in the standard java.lang package. All right. So this approach is more or less similar to that approach that we covered when we were trying to read input through the keyboard using the readline method, which is defined in the buffer reader class, where we started by creating an input stream reader, input stream reader object. Then we passed that input stream reader object as an argument of what? Of the buffered reader constructor. It's more or less the same situation or scenario that we have here. We have created a file object, then we pass that file object as an argument of the file reader the file reader constructor. But maybe let me just import the necessary classes. Right, after importing and now we have those import statements. Right, then what are some of the methods that I can use? Right, if I just say fr dot, we have got close, we have got equals, we have got get class, notify, and so on. But this class does not have methods which maybe allow us to read input from a file, which will be maybe what? Which will be strings. Yes, we have got other methods like the read, where we can only read some characters or arrays of characters. So this class does not have maybe suitable methods which will allow us to read maybe strings, numbers, and so on. So we are not going to use what? We are not going to use the methods which are defined in the file reader class. We are going to use either the scanner or the buffered reader class. We are going to use either the scanner class or the buffered reader class, because the buffered reader class, it is a readline method, right? And the scanner class, it is a number of methods which we can actually use to get our input or read input from a file. Right. That file reader constructor is underlined in red. It means there is a problem there. Right. If I maybe just point to that, it's actually saying that multiple markers at this line. Resource leak file reader is never closed. 1. Then 2, unhandled exception. Type file not found exception. Remember, when we used the readline method defined in the buffer reader class, we said that readline method generates an IO exception, right? And we added the throws clause to the header of what? Header of the method which was containing the readline method, right? As one approach to dealing with that kind of an exception, right? So we can also do the same here. We can just throw that file not found what? File not found exception. We can just add a throws clause, and then we specify the error that we want to throw. So we can just say throws file not found exception. File not found exception is a class, and this class is defined in the java.io package. So we have to import that class. We have to import that class. So I have imported the class. Right. So what we can now do is we can now use what? We can now use either the buffered reader class or the scanner class to get input from a file. Right, so let's maybe start with the buffered reader. So I create a buffered reader object. Maybe BR is equal to new buffered reader. Buffered reader. Then I pass a file reader as an object. Then after that, I need to import what? I need to import a buffered reader because it's not defined in the standard java.lang package, right? So after importing buffered reader, I can now use the readline method, which is defined in the buffered buffered reader. But we all know that that readline method throws what? It throws an IO exception. So we also need to deal with that error or handle that particular error. So we can maybe declare a string like maybe line or a sentence, because we want to extract maybe a sentence from our file and then maybe print it. So we can say string line is equal to br.readline. br.readline like that. Right, that read line is underlined and it's actually complained about an unhandled exception, the IO exception. So we need to again throw that exception. We need to throw that exception. So we just go to the header of the method which is containing this readline method, and then we just add that exception here. We just separate these exceptions with our commas if you have got more than one exception. So it can be file not found exception, comma, IO exception. The order doesn't matter. You can start with whatever class that you want or exception that you want to throw. All right, so I can now have IO exception, then comma, then file not found exception. The IO exception is underlined because it cannot find the IO exception. So we need to tell it where that class is defined, the IO exception. All right, it's in the java.io package. So we need to import that package. Oh, the spelling is wrong. IO exception. X is supposed to be lowercase. Right. So now we have read the first line from the file using that statement. Maybe for those of you who don't believe that we have actually read a line of input from a file, we can actually print to actually show that we have actually read something from the file. So we can actually try to print print whatever we have read. Right, so we expect it to fetch the first line and then print. If I run this, I expect it to just print the first line, if everything is what is correct. Right, so that's the first one, that's the first line, which is just about the header, the header row is the header row. Right, maybe if I want the first row or first record, I can maybe repeat that statement like that. So it is going to now print sorry, I don't need to redefine this. I just need to say system.out print line read print line line dot read line. I need to read again. Sorry, not read lines. br.what read line. I'm not going to assign it to any variable, or I can come here and then I say line is equal to br.read line like this, such that I assign line to the next record or next row. Right, then here I print I print line, or I can just pass br.read line straight away. Right, or I can do this. Right, and then if I run, I now have the first record. Right, so how do I read all the records and maybe just display them? How do we read all the records? Because we can't continue copying and pasting these statements. Because if the file is very, very large, you might need to hire people to help you to copy and paste. Right, precisely. You can use a looping construct here. You can use a looping construct, right? Because when we covered control structures, we said that you can actually use loops to repeat execution of a certain block of statements while a condition is true. So here our condition is that maybe while the file is not empty, we need to continue reading elements and then or reading statements, and then we display them. So as long as the file has some statements, or the file is not empty, we want to continue reading. Right, so what we can maybe do is we can now put or add a while loop here. When you are using the read line method, when you have reached the end of the line, not end of line, when you have reached the end of file rather, when you have reached the end of file, it will return read line will return now. It will return a value of now. Right, so that's our terminating condition. We want to continue to read elements or read records until we read now. That's when we stop. So we can simply say while line is not equal to now, we continue reading. Right, then we maybe add these two statements in in curly braces. So we then read and then print, read and print, read and print, read and print. So if I save this and run, I expect it to read all the contents of what? All the contents of a file. And then at the end we now have what? We now have now. Right, so these are all the records which are in my what? In my file. These are the records which are in my file, or lines or sentences which are in my file. So you can get your input from what? You can get your input from a file. You can get your input from a file. Right, then when you are done, you need to close what? You need to close your file. So you can just say br.close. So here it's saying it closes the stream and releases any system resources associated with it. We want to release system resources so that they can be used by what? By someone. It's just a good or standard practice for you to close files right at the end of the program to release system resources, to free system resources. Right, like this, and then you terminate with what? With a semicolon. So that's how you read input from a file using that method, the read line method. At times you might want to read and perform some calculations and so on. Here we are just reading what? We are reading a line at a time. But you can actually read what? A word at a time. You can actually read a word at a time instead of reading what? Reading the whole line. Right, where we can actually use what? We can actually use these methods, the read, rather than using what? Rather than using the read line. But I think it's maybe better for you to actually use methods which are defined in the scanner what? In the scanner class, rather than these methods. Right, so let's look at how you can use maybe the scanner. Let's look at how you can use the scanner. Right, so for you to use the scanner, you just need to create a scanner object. Let me maybe delete these statements, or maybe let me just edit here. Scanner, maybe S is equal to new scanner, right? And here instead of passing system.in, we pass what? We pass the file, the input file. We pass the input file, and the scanner is not defined in the standard java.lang package. It's defined in the what? java.util package, right? So you can maybe import that. Right, apart from importing, the other approach is to specify the name of what? The name of the package. But I don't think it's a proper, that's maybe good. You can maybe say java.util.what? .scanner, like that. And then you come here, then you say java.util .scanner, like that. And then you don't what? And then you don't import. That's another approach. But there's a problem if maybe you are using scanner maybe several times. might need to make sure that you precede or qualify the scanner each and every time you use it. So it's rather better maybe to just have an import declaration. You can do the same with any other package that we've been importing. If you are maybe using it only once, well, you can maybe just use that approach. But I don't think it's a good approach. It's maybe better to just import the package. Right. So let me maybe just import the package. But it's still you can still use that approach. It actually works. Right. Then after that, you can now use your S to read. Sorry, we have got next line, next int, next double, and so on. So you can actually use all these methods to read your input, right? And this scanner object is actually iterable. You can look at it as maybe a collection, more or less similar to the array list that we covered. So we can actually make use of a method which is called as next. So when we are defining our while loop, we can actually use that as next method to check whether our file still has some contents. So we can say while s dot is next, while our file still has some contents, continue reading and printing. So you can use the as next method. So I can now say while here s dot is next, which is a boolean method, and it returns true if this scanner has another token in its input. This method may block while waiting for input to scan. The scanner does not advance past any input. Right. So we are saying it's specified by the as next in the iterator. We'll talk about that maybe when we look at the other collection interfaces and classes. Yesterday we only looked at maybe the list interface and the implementation of that, which is an array list. Right. So in this in the body of this while loop, we then read and then then write to the console screen. So we can maybe just use that very same approach where we can say system.out.println what do we want to print here? S dot next line. Next line like that. So maybe we can just comment out this so that maybe we comment out those two print line statements. We want to make sure that we now read and write using the scanner. So let me try to run this and see if I get the correct output. Here is the output. So that's the scanner method. That is the scanner method. Right, with the scanner, you can actually use the various methods, right? Assuming that maybe you have got a well formatted file. Let's say maybe we have got the last name, first name, and then maybe we have got maybe height, weight, and maybe age. So you can actually you can actually use the next, next, then next next double, next next int, and so on to read your to read your input. Let me maybe create another file. Let me try to quickly create another file here. Maybe it might be easy to use Excel, then maybe I copy it and just create a text file. Maybe we have got a name, and then we have weight, and then maybe we have got age, right? Maybe I have got there's two numbers. Let me try to add some names here, but just a few. Oh, we are supposed to go to the software lab for the next one now. Right, so what I've done is I've just created that text file. Let me maybe just quickly save it, and then I demonstrate what I want to save as maybe input.txt. Let me save it. Maybe downloads. I have got a file called input.txt. Right, then I come here and then I just change that to input.txt. Input.txt. right, and then I run and just check if it's connecting. So those are the values, but we are reading the whole line at a time. We might want to read one value, right, then we read the next one, and so on. Maybe you might want to calculate the average the average weight. Might want to calculate the average weight. You read the weight for maybe one student or one person, and then you need to store it somewhere else. You read the next, you add, read the next, add, and then you divide by the total number of total number of so you can't use next line or read line in that case. So you can either use next to read strings, or next int, or next double to read numbers. So what I can do is here I can modify my code a bit. Maybe I can have a double variable. Maybe sum is equal to 0. Then I come here, then I read. I might maybe need to declare a variable outside here, which is going to extract the value, or I might just need to read without storing. If I am not concerned about other values, I can just read. Right, so the first one is a name. The first one is a name. So what I need to do is I simply need to say s dot next. So it is supposed to read the value in the first column. Then if I say s dot next, the next one is an integer. Right, it's now going to read It's now going to read the integer. Right, then after that I read the other value, which is maybe also an integer, like that. So the first time, or in the first iteration, it is going to read the header row. So you might need to read the header row outside the loop. So you might just need to have maybe s dot next line outside the loop, so that you read the header row. Then inside the loop you then read the actual records. Right, so if I now read this which is the weight, I can now add it to sum. So I can now say sum plus equals this. I can now say sum plus equals s dot next int. Right, so after the loop here, I can now just print system dot out dot print line sum. Right, so we are reading, and then we add whatever would have read to that variable sum, and then we print. Let me just check if we are getting the correct might need to verify, but I think it's actually correct. So it's just adding the values which are in the second column. Just adding the values which are in the second column. So you can use the next int, next double, and so on, so that you read one value at a time. If you want to calculate, if you want to add, and so on, you can actually store them in a variable, perform some computations, and so on. If you just want to read the whole line, you can just read the entire line. Are there any questions? Yes.
Somebody asked, is there any document types which cannot be read using this method?
I'm not sure. Maybe I might have to check if there are maybe certain types of. I normally use Word documents, CSV, text documents. I haven't used maybe other types of documents. Or is there anybody who has maybe experimented with quite a number of documents, or who has maybe an answer to his question? Right, I think maybe that's all about reading input from a file. So I think maybe we can go to the software lab.